The sky was restless that night. Dark clouds rolled across the heavens, heavy with thunder, as if creation itself anticipated something unusual. Inside the small maternity hut at the edge of the village, Adana clutched the hand of the midwife. Sweat streamed down her face, her lips cracked from hours of screaming. Every breath was a battle. Every contraction shook her body like a storm. "Push, Adana, push," the midwife urged Dot with one final cry that echoed into the night. The child came forth, the air filled with the shrill cry of a newborn, a sound that normally brought joy, laughter, and relief. But not tonight. The midwives froze. Their smiles faded into horror. One of them, trembling, covered her mouth with both hands. Another whispered under her breath, unable to stop staring. Her neck, "It's too long." Adana, still gasping for breath, stretched out her arms. "Give me my baby. Let me see her." The midwife hesitated, then slowly placed the tiny bundle into Adana's trembling arms. Adana looked down, and her heart sank. The child's eyes were wide, innocent, full of life, but her neck, it stretched far longer than it should have, fragile and unnatural. It looked like a cruel mistake of nature. Adana shook her head violently, tears already filling her eyes. "No, no, this cannot be my child. This is not what I prayed for." The midwives looked at one another, uncertain what to say. One whispered, "The spirits must be angry." Another muttered, "Such a child will bring mockery to the family." The baby cried, her tiny fingers reaching upward, as if begging to be held with love. But Adana turned her face away. From that night, shame wrapped itself around the baby like a second skin. Adana named her Leora, name that meant light. Yet deep inside, she did not see light in the child. She only saw darkness, a burden that she was unwilling to carry. Days later, Adana visited her closest friend, a kind but childless woman named Mama Ifananya. With trembling hands, she placed the baby in her arms. "Please," Adana whispered, her voice breaking, "raise her as your own. Let the world never know she came from me. Let her believe you are her mother." Mama Ifunanya, whose arms had ached for a child for years, looked at the baby with tears in her eyes. She saw not deformity but innocence. She nodded slowly. "I will raise her. She will not lack love under my roof." And so Leora grew not under her mother's love, but under the care of another woman. But the world was not kind. From the moment she could walk, children pointed at her. "Look at her neck. She looks like a giraffe," they shouted, laughing. Cruelly Dot, when she fetched water at the stream, boys mocked her, making long-necked gestures and throwing stones. When she passed the market, grown women whispered, covering their mouths with their wrappers. Even the elders, who should have known better, shook their heads and muttered, "That girl, she is a sign of shame." At home, Mama Ifunanya defended her fiercely. "She is my daughter. She is fearfully and wonderfully made. Don't you dare insult her in my presence." But when Leora was alone at night, the weight of the ridicule crushed her. She would sit in the corner of her small room, tears rolling down her cheeks, her thin arms hugging her knees. "God," she whispered into the silence, "why did you make me this way? Why can't I be normal like the others? Why must I be the one everyone laughs at?" Her cries often faded into the night, unanswered, or so she thought. Yet, deep inside, a quiet strength was being built, a strength even she did not yet recognize. Years passed, and the little girl called Giraffe grew into a young woman. Leora's body stretched tall and slender, her long neck still the feature that drew whispers wherever she went. But time had done something strange. What once looked odd began to carry a quiet elegance. When she fetched water, her posture seemed regal. When she walked, there was grace in her steps. Her skin glowed like bronze under the sun, her eyes deep with untold stories. The same people who once laughed now looked twice, though few admitted it aloud. Yet, in Leora's own eyes, nothing had changed. Every morning, as she tied her wrapper, she saw not beauty but deformity. Her heart whispered, "No man will ever love me, no future awaits me except mockery." But destiny had already written a different chapter. One warm afternoon at the village stream, while women filled their calabashes and children splashed in the shallow edges, a young man watched her. His name was Tibet's skilled farmer, known for his honesty, his strength, and the quiet confidence in his eyes. He had seen many young women, yet none held his gaze the way Leora did. She bent to lift her heavy pot, and Tibetchi noticed how the sunlight caught her features. Her long neck, adorned with nothing but simplicity, gave her the appearance of royalty. The very thing others mocked was In his eyes, her crown. He stepped forward. "Let me help you with that," he said warmly. Leora stiffened, clutching the pot. Years of ridicule had taught her suspicion. She did not look him in the eye. "You don't have to pity me," she muttered, bitterness dripping from her tone. Tebek tilted his head, a gentle smile on his lips. "Pity? No, I admire you." The words struck her like a drumbeat. She blinked, uncertain if she had heard right. No one had ever spoken such words to her. From that day, Tabichi's presence became constant. At the stream, he carried her pot. On market days, he walked beside her. In the evenings, he lingered near Mama Ifunanya's compound, eager to hear Leora's voice. At first, she kept her heart guarded. Years of shame are not easily erased, but Tabechi was patient. He listened when she spoke of her pain, and he reminded her that what the world mocked could also be the very thing that set her apart. "You see a curse," he told her one evening beneath the palm trees, "but I see a gift. You stand taller than others, not only in body, but in spirit. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to stand out." Leora's heart fluttered, though fear still lingered. Could he truly mean it? Could he truly love her? But love, once planted, cannot be hidden. In time, Tabichi's admiration grew into affection, and his affection into boldness. He began to speak of a future one, where she was not mocked but honored, not hidden but celebrated. The village soon noticed. Whispers spread quickly. "Have you seen? Tabechi is always with her. Can you believe it? Of all the maidens, he chooses the one with the long neck." Among those who whispered, none burned with more rage than Nkechi. Nkechi was a beauty by every standard: round eyes, smooth skin, a smile that turned heads. For years, she had set her sights on Tabechi, convinced that she would one day be his bride. To see him with Leora, the very girl she despised, was an insult she could not bear. At the marketplace, she hissed to her friends, "Does he not see? She's a curse, a mockery of womanhood. And yet he chooses her over me. I will not stand for it." But no amount of gossip could quench Tabichi's affection. At last, he approached Mama Ifunanya's home, his voice steady, his heart resolved. "I love your daughter," he declared, "and I want her hand in marriage." Mama Ifunanya's eyes filled with tears. For years, she had prayed for the day when Leora would no longer be seen through the lens of shame. That day had come. The village buzzed with gossip, laughter, and disbelief. But preparations began. A wedding was coming, a wedding no one expected. And many swore they would not honor. And deep in the shadows, Nkechi's jealousy grew into venom. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, as though the heavens themselves wanted to witness what would unfold. The village square, decorated with palm fronds and woven mats, pulsed with the sound of drums. Women pounded on wooden mortar, men beat their talking drums, and children ran about laughing. At the center of it all stood Leora, wrapped in a flowing gown of ivory cloth, her hair braided and adorned with coral beads. Around her long neck, rows of shining coral rested like a crown. For the first time in her life, she felt beautiful, not hidden, not mocked, a bride. Her hands trembled as she glanced at Tabechi, who stood tall and proud in his white attire, his face radiant with joy. He reached for her hand and whispered, "Today, you are not just my bride, you are my queen." The drums beat louder, the dancers swirled. The village gathered, some with curiosity, others with disbelief. Some whispered, shaking their heads, "How can this be? The long-necked girl is marrying Tabechi. Has he lost his senses?" But in the midst of the joy, darkness stirred. Nkechi, dressed in scarlet, pushed her way into the square. Her eyes burned with fury, her smile sharp as a blade. She could not let this wedding pass without leaving her mark. Raising her voice above the drums, she shouted, "Stop this nonsense. How can we celebrate such shame? Look at her." She pointed at Leora with venom. "She is a curse, not a bride, a disgrace to womanhood. Tabechi, how can you bind yourself to such a creature?" The square erupted. Gasps, murmurs, laughter, mockery, it all came crashing down like a wave. The same old words Leora had heard all her life returned in a roar. Her hands trembled, her eyes dropped to the ground. For a moment, she was that little girl again, standing by the stream with tears on her face, mocked by all. Shame rose like fire in her chest, but then Tabechi moved. He stepped forward, his arm wrapping firmly around her shoulders. His voice thundered across the square, silencing even the drums. "Enough," he roared. His eyes blazed as he looked at Enkichi, then at the crowd. You call her a curse. No, she is my blessing. Where you see mockery, I see majesty. Where you see shame, I see glory. Her neck is no deformity, is her crown, and I will cherish her for all my days. The crowd fell silent. Some bowed their heads in shame. Others shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet Leora's eyes. But then another voice broke through, a trembling, weary voice from the back of the crowd. This child, this woman, she is mine. The people turned. A tall man stepped forward. His clothes marked him as wealthy, his bearing that of one who had traveled far and wide. His name was Emeka, man who had been absent from the village for many years. His eyes were locked on Leora, wide with recognition, heavy with tears. I know her, he whispered. That mark on her hand, the beads on her neck, she is my blood, my daughter. The square erupted again, this time in shock. From the shadows, a woman staggered forward, her face pale, her lips trembling. It was Ada. She had come quietly, intending to see the wedding from afar, but the moment had broken her. Her knees buckled as she fell before Leora, her voice cracking with sobs. Yes, it is true. She is yours, Emeka, and she is mine. I gave her away. I was too ashamed, too weak to raise her. Forgive me, Leora. Forgive me, my child. The world seemed to spin around Leora. The woman she had called Mama was not her mother. The father she had never known now stood before her. The truth felt too heavy to bear. Tears streamed down her face as the crowd watched, silent, waiting. She could have turned away. She could have shouted, cursed them, demanded repayment for all the years of shame. But instead, she drew in a trembling breath, her voice steady though her heart quaked. I forgive you, she whispered. Her gaze swept over Adana and Emeka. You threw me away, but God lifted me up. You called me shame, but He called me beauty. What you abandoned, He has restored. The words struck the crowd like a thunderclap. Some covered their faces in tears. Others shouted in awe. Even Nkechi shrank back, unable to speak. And as the drums slowly resumed, it became clear this wedding was no longer just about a bride and groom. It was about a curse turned into a crown, a daughter restored, and shame transformed into glory. The village square remained hushed, as though time itself had paused. All eyes were on Leora, the girl, once despised, now standing as a bride, as a daughter restored, as a symbol of something greater than anyone had imagined. Adana was still on her knees, her sobs shaking her frail body. She reached out, but dared not touch her daughter. I do not deserve your forgiveness, she whispered. I carried you in my womb, yet I rejected you at birth. I let shame blind me. I do not deserve to call you my child. But Leora knelt beside her, lifting her mother's chin with gentle hands. For the first time, she looked into Adana's eyes without bitterness. You are right, she said softly. You don't deserve it. But love, true love, is not given because it is deserved. It is given because God first gave it to us. I will not carry hatred. I forgive you, Mama. Adana wept harder, her body collapsing into Leora's embrace. Around them, people murmured, some wiping tears, others bowing their heads in shame for the years they had ridiculed her. Then Leora turned to Emeka, her father. He stood rigid, his strong shoulders trembling, his eyes brimming with regret. I searched for you for years, he said hoarsely. But when I returned to the village and learned the truth that your mother had given you, oh, why I did not know how to face you. Forgive me, my daughter. Forgive me for not protecting you. Leora nodded slowly, her voice firm. You may not have been there to protect me, Father, but God was, and He has brought me to this day. I forgive you too. The words rippled through the crowd like fire on dry grass. In a single moment, the girl mocked as a curse stood taller than every insult, every scar. Her long neck, the very thing used against her now, seemed to gleam with honor. Tebechi, who had watched in silence, finally stepped forward. His voice was steady, but his eyes shone with pride. Do you see now? He declared to the people. Do you see what I saw all along? You called her shame. I call her glory. You called her curse. I call her crown. Today, before all of you, I vowed to cherish her, not because of what she looks like, but because of who she is, a woman of strength, of grace, of forgiveness. The square erupted not with laughter, not with mockery, but with thunderous applause, cheers, and the pounding of drums. Women, ululated, men shouted praises. Children clapped and danced. Even the elders, who once frowned at her, nodded in respect. And Nkechi, humiliated, tried to slip away unnoticed. But her own friends turned their backs on her, whispering, "Shame does not belong to Leora, it belongs to those who could not see her worth." The wedding resumed, but now it was more than a marriage celebration. It was a story of redemption, a living parable. The people danced with newfound joy, as though they too had been freed from chains of prejudice. That night, as the stars spread across the sky, Leora stood at the edge of the village, her coral beads glowing faintly in the moonlight. She thought of the journey, the tears, the rejection, the years of ridicule, and she thought of the forgiveness she had given and received. A gentle breeze whispered through the palm trees, carrying with it a sense of peace. For the first time in her life, she no longer asked, "God, why did you make me this way?" Instead, she whispered with gratitude, "Thank you, Lord, for making me exactly as I am." Her long neck stretched gracefully as she lifted her face toward the heavens. No longer a mark of shame now, it was her crown, her testimony, her glory. And so, the girl once rejected became a wife, a daughter restored, and a queen in the eyes of her people. The story of Leora spread beyond the village, a tale told to children by firelight and sung by griots in distant towns, that no matter how the world mocks you, what they call a curse, God can turn into a crown.